What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of the After You Cast. Now, today we're going to be bringing my boy back, who's been on a couple of times before. Now, you guys don't really even need an introduction. As my boy Josh, professional footballer, and yeah, we just have really good conversations. He's been on different platforms and talked about some of these talking points we discuss. But I think this strain of new conversation that we're stepping into is becoming much more important, especially for men, young men. We're going to talk today about accountability, and I brought this up on my last episode, but it was just me, and it was just solo, me breaking down a few points of how it's related to me as an artist, as an athlete. But bringing Josh on, I think it's just good because, one, we get a different perspective of other people, but me and him talk about this stuff off camera a lot, which is like, we're in this weird space right now in society where accountability is being like pushed to the far recesses of importance when it comes to people. It's almost like in arguments and conversations, people will do their hardest, they'll do their damnedest to shirk what they're accountable for. There's always some form of an excuse, there's always some type of a reason or a finger pointed in another direction. And I know you, very much like myself, we like to take the accountability. We like to be like, no, I'd rather take it from you so that I can learn how to handle that and I know how to grow with that. And that's why we see a lot of these young people out here today where they're just going around aimlessly, don't really have a purpose, a direction in life, relationships all over the place, finances all over the place. It's crazy. And I think a lot of that all boils back down to like how accountable you are for your day-to-day actions. Like, are you the first one to point the finger? Or do you say, okay, hold on, wait, what did I do in that situation? Like, can I actually add to it? You know what I mean? So, definitely. Yeah, bro, let's just jump straight into it, man. Like, first of all, what's your kind of just general thoughts on just like accountability in itself and like how it factors in today?
For me, it is the most important thing because everything in my belief system starts with self. So you can't always control other people's actions, but you can definitely control your own. I'd say, because like obviously often when we're speaking about these things, or when people speak about these things on platforms, it can seem as if like we're coming from I'm perfect and I take all accountability. But I haven't always been this person. It's taken life to kind of give me the reality check to realise that I am not to blame, but I have to take accountability for the situation I'm in, the things I've achieved, good and bad, everything that I'm going through currently. I have to take accountability for that because I'm of the belief system that I'm like my own God, if you know what I mean. Like in terms of I create my reality. And if my reality is to my disliking, then that's because I'm not taking accountability through lack of discipline and not kind of functioning properly or in health-wise homeostasis, so I don't have that balance. So I might be going too far this way and doing too much football, too much gym, so then I'm not taking accountability for the fact that I'm not giving my partner enough time. And it's being able to turn around and look at yourself almost in the mirror, like Michael Jackson says, start with a man in the mirror, and look at yourself and be like, where are you going wrong? And the difficulty is, which I can accept for everyone, is life is a constant kind of pulsating. So as one thing gets more attention, something else gets a little less. So there's no perfect method like, Sundays have breakfast, lunch and dinner, other day have a 2-day fast. Like, it's ever evolving and changing. But the important thing for me is to continuously keep your mind in that guessing state and be like, I've been at the gym twice today, what haven't I done? Okay, so tomorrow maybe I'm going to give that a little bit of attention. So then you're constantly taking accountability, and you can only try and keep as much balance as you can, because everything falls out of balance, whether it's health wise, like might have a Twix or something, so then you're kind of offsetting your usual routine, but then it's going back to your default settings tomorrow and being like, this is the usual me, this is the balanced me, and it all starts with accountability.
I mean, just when you're talking about that as well, it made me think about what we have today as well. And I think this is why we're seeing all of this social media content and things like RP content, things like all of these different groups and organizations that are coming online, they now have a platform, and they can now essentially pop on to YouTube for free, or any one of your favorite streaming platforms, and you can now go onto a platform, create an audience, and then just resonate with that audience. But we're not really focusing on like the layers that operate within that. So for example, even this, simple as, you know, after you cast, I've had people come on here, fairly creative, come from like entertainment, creative backgrounds, and what I've found is that there's a lot of similarities in terms of how they operate, in terms of their willingness and openness, their mindfulness. These things are quite, they correlate across everyone. But when you look at accountability on a broad scale, because it's such a broad statement, I think it gets so misconstrued as to mixed in with excuses. So it's almost it's like, you know, I'm taking accountability, but I'm also kind of like avoiding the excuses and that side of things.
It's like when people go, I did do that, but so you've taken accountability, but then it's like when people throw backhanded compliments, like she's pretty, but she's, I just leave it at that.
Exactly.
So that's where I completely understand. We try and shift we try and take it, but then shift it to one side and give a reason as to why we don't have to take full accountability. Instead of just going, you know what, I messed up.
Precisely.
That's it. Leave it there. Full stop.
There's this emphasis to that, this continuation online now, and I think it's partly because social media don't sleep. So it's almost like once you've always got new ends and new strands of thinking, people are like, okay, cool, I don't have to end a thought. I can have this place where I can be in this everlasting, non-stop, free-flowing motion. But where do we resolve anything doing that? Like,
this is me, like, actually, I just almost in my mind took a bit of accountability and kind of had a thought as you were saying that. Maybe the cool thing to do then is when people are saying all these things, because obviously, like you said, anyone can create a platform, anyone can say stuff for clout or whatever, maybe ask them if they've done that then. So say for example they're talking about the men and women dynamic, or the cheating. If you flip the script and go, have you ever cheated then? Because you might have an opinion on it. Cheating's not right. Have you ever done it though? Not that I know of. No, you either have or you haven't. Like, you know what? That's or it happened, but I didn't know that it was. No. So then you've like had an affair with someone. All these things, like it's like
it tells you a little bit about why they're discussing something, isn't it?
Exactly that. Like we can have conversations about high value men and stuff like this, but if someone's preaching, there's a difference between us having a conversation and us coming to a common ground and being like, like for a high value man, he's probably gonna have loads of options, but if I'm not a high value man, I shouldn't be condemning like men that aren't and being like like as if I am, because then I should be like, do you earn 150 grand a year, because that is the status quo of a high value man. These things we can have the conversation, but if you're condemning someone and saying, you don't, and not everyone's a high value man, but are you, because you've got such an opinion on it, then are you that? Like that's the way to, like, maybe people need to do that. That's what you should do on the panel.
100%.
Invite all the whole of YouTube on all these podcasts. Like, you lot spoke on that. Are you actually that? Because women do that a lot, where they'll be like, like these girls are hoes and but have you had a hoe face? Like,
have you ever done any of those things?
Have you ever done any of those things?
It's so true, bro. It's like, that's why I always that's why I feel very confident when I speak on this platform, because I don't speak about things I don't know typically,
or you haven't lived.
Or I'll bring or I'll bring somebody on who's well versed in that. Then I'm also willing to listen and take accountability. So I know I have the whole package in terms of receiving information and then sharing information. Some people can only do one of those. But
also, you share it from a very balanced standpoint. You're not I wouldn't say you're very biased. Like as men, we're logical anyway. But you're not like, women. It's like I'm only 100%. Speaking based on what I've seen. Like, I'm not kind of going with the status quo and just saying it because it's cool.
I saw it on
one time I was out and I saw a married woman kiss another guy and then go on to the next guy. Like, you're speaking from experience, not just plucking out of anywhere. And that's when you can speak on these things, because it's through experience. A lot of people nowadays tend to speak through lack of experience. That's why I said about people taking accountability. If you're speaking on a high value man, have you ever been a high value man? And their ego will then kick in.
100%. And then they'll be like, and then the triggers, the emotions.
Then you move the goalpost.
You shift it. You're like, oh yeah, but I'm just saying it because I'm explaining
boys
it
are.
for this. Yeah, justification. Yeah, 100%. And it all links back into accountability as well, doesn't it?
So that's why I have no problem taking accountability. So right now I'm not playing football. I have to take accountability for why I'm not playing football. One, because I got injured playing in a game that I should have played in. So I can't be mad at the world and be, why is it happening to me? I'm struggling so much because I did something.
Yeah.
If I had done that, I wouldn't be having this conversation about me having to take accountability for having.
You could just blame the guy who's like you playing in the team with, like, some guy gave me a late challenge. Stupid guy not paying attention.
But he's doing his job, or he's doing what he's set out to do.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing my job because that wasn't my job. I was just there because I was trying to do something that I wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah,
and it comes down to
you want to get away with it too. This is the thing. People want to get away with things, and they're okay when they get away with it. But the moment that they don't, that's when you're talking what you're talking about.
But this is what, like, this might be off on a random tangent, but this is why I have like a kind of funny thing with religious people, because they can always dismiss the blame and never take accountability.
I know what you mean.
So they'll go, if they score a goal in football, for example, God did it. If they got injured, God's plan.
That's right.
But then if they go on a night out and get absolutely hammered after they said there wasn't, it was the devil.
Yeah.
Where do you come into play?
Satan's talking to me.
Like, where do you come into play?
Facts.
Like me, I don't ever like to think that I'm not to blame, or I'm not at the wheel of my life.
Yeah.
So then, therefore, the good and the bad, I have to take accountability.
That's it.
If I achieve something great, that was me.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether you played a role in it, I had to do it. And it's the same with the bad.
Yeah.
If I do something bad, I have to take accountability, because the only way to grow is actually to take accountability and be like, you know what, let me look at myself. This is where I could have done better.
Yeah, 100%, bro. I mean, me personally as well, like, that's exactly how I like to operate, you know. The reason why I think these talking points, because I've been watching RP content for a while now, and I watch a lot of different content creators, but I didn't feel the necessary need, even though a lot of the stuff I watch, and you watch some of these arguments, you watch some of these females come on and spew some of their rhetoric, and you're like, what are you talking about? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It does make sense when you think about how they operate. When you're emotional, you're going to bring emotion to logical conversations. So that is how it goes. But how it's heightening, I've looked at it like, I didn't want to come at this at some pointing fingers and this and that and this and the third, because when I realised it deep to it, I think most of the reason, and this is for me personally, a lot of the reason I'm frustrated with the stuff is because I know I'm not in the position to dictate and get what I want from a relationship. That's why I abstain from any serious relationships until I'm in that position. Now, a lot of people out there would say, "Bun that, just go out there, live life, have fun." Da, 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 da. Okay, cool.
But that's accountability at the highest level, because, like, you could be out here doing a madness and, like, kind of just being the lowest version of yourself, but you're actually taking accountability and saying, "I do want that, but right now I don't feel like it's the best thing for me or the person that could be on the receiving end." That's accountability. That's growing accountability.
Yeah. And that's the only thing that gets me with the convo sometimes, is that guys that do what you just mentioned, which I attempt to do, and a lot of our guys do as well, you tend to be met with the shaming language a little bit, because when you get online and you start talking about these things, you're dealing with so many emotions in so many different places, isn't it? So when you are willing to take accountability, what I don't like is if I'm willing to take the accountability, I don't appreciate when we have a conversation, then it breaks down, and then just little shaming insults and all of that stuff comes in, and it denigrates the whole convo, because it's like, we could be having a great chat for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, and then you reach a point where you realise, okay, you know, maybe I'm have these point of views because it's just me. So instead of acknowledging it, a lot of people struggle with doing it on the spot. Like, what I'm good at is that if you said something to me right now that questioned one of my life theories of something, I'd be like, okay, and then I would think about it. I'm not going to immediately be like, no, bro.
See, I used to be like that. I used to be like that when I was younger, and I think it's partly conditioning from where you're like, you're brought up, because you're taught to snap quick.
Yeah.
Even if it's not with anger, if you cuss me, I got to have a comeback within 2-3 seconds. Otherwise, it's a flop.
Yeah.
So I've got to be quick. But I think, like I said, accountability goes hand in hand with discipline, because accountability is a form of discipline.
Yeah.
But then accountability, you can only have accountability, and this is what I've learned probably in the last 2-3 years as I've kind of like matured to some degree and kind of faced myself.
Yeah.
Is it's like married to vulnerability, because you have to be vulnerable, and it's hard to be vulnerable.
That's a deep.
That's the hardest. I think the strongest trait that anyone can have is their vulnerability, but it's a very hard thing to have, because as men, especially, that you almost have to be strategic with how you show your vulnerability. Because if I was to start bawling, crying, people would be like, "Oh, that's a bit awkward." But then it's having the right tone to be vulnerable. I have it sometimes if me and my partner argue, which is a rarity. And I try and be sincere and be like, "Look, I don't want to argue with you right now." But then, as women, they're emotional, so then she'll try to keep going. And I'm like, "Look, I'm trying to diffuse the situation right now."
And it almost makes it worse. Do you find it makes it worse sometimes?
Like, it's almost like they want you to snap and put them in their place and be like,
I know what you mean.
Up, have a big fallout, not speak for a couple of days, and they'll come back and cry, and you'll cuddle, and then you'll move on. But I don't want to. Anger is the lowest form of energy. So I don't even want to get to that stage. If you're trying to get me to the stage of anger, then we need to reevaluate how we're doing things and how we're choosing to talk. Because I shouldn't have to get to anger to get the desired result. So then it makes her look at herself and take accountability for herself.
That's so true. I mean, as you were speaking, something popped into my head. I've been in a couple of different conversations behind the scenes, and obviously watching stuff on YouTube and all of the RP creators. When you see men and women debate these talking points online, one thing that gets me is when again, you're having a logical convo, breaking down something, a simple point, something very simple, and then that little element of the shaming language comes in when women typically like to say, "Who hurt you?" And I think that is really it's almost like the smoking gun for women in an argument, because when the argument is broken down and you don't have necessarily something logical to come in, or even just something valid, because they don't have to be logic versus emotion all the time. Sometimes there are the little intrinsic things that get mixed in, but when we get the "who hurt you" conversation stuff, I think that's more insidious, because it's almost like, if anything, I think you are trying to do that. Do you know what I mean? Because instead of us resolving this through conversation healthily, you're going to try to just throw in some shame or some guilt.
So that's a dope point, because I had the conversation with my missus, because we wasn't having an argument, but I was like, going forward, I'd like to try this method. So you just mentioned health. So I think I've said it before, where when you don't want to take accountability, what you tend to do is you both tend to recede in your finger point and go, "Yeah, but you did this," and then the person will go a little bit further back in the timeline, and you'll keep going back until, "Oh, when we first got together, you promised this," and it just keeps going backwards and it gets tit for tat. Whereas what you should actually do in order to take full accountability for whatever the situation or scenario is then and there is figure out who was the first one to take it to an unhealthy place. So arguing is sometimes healthy, because it allows you to vent your emotions and let it all out. But who was the first one that either threw in shame, said something that was kind of off on attack, that had no sense, or was just rude, or swore first, or raised their voice first? Who did the unhealthy thing first? And that's where the discussion became an argument. So that's where, instead of going, "Oh yeah, but you said you would put your boxes away." But you didn't even give me 5 minutes to do them. I just come out the shower. "Oh yeah, well, you should have showered this morning because you said you was good," and it just keeps going back and back. Whereas if it would have just been a case of, right, who said the unhealthy thing first? You came in, instead of asking, "Can you put them in a dirty bin when you're done?" You've come in on the attack and gone, "Why the F are they that's the unhealthy bit?"
And it starts from there.
And then you can go from there and take accountability and be like, "Right, I'm going to take accountability because I was the one that triggered you to even have to say something by dropping them there." But then you have to take accountability for the way in which you address the situation.
Yeah, you know what? It's almost like we never actually resolve things if we don't take the accountability. That's really what it comes down to. It's like once you take the accountability, it's almost like, okay, cool, we can start from here now to start to resolve. But when you shirk accountability and responsibility, it's like it's not even much point dealing with those interactions. Like, of course, some people are forced into them, or it's family or things like that. But this is why I think a lot of relationships fail. This is why a lot of people have a lot of back and forth strife. There isn't much collaboration versus competition. I've spoken about this before. Competition trumps collaboration night and day. Like, if they were closely more tied, we would understand, we'd be able to see a better universe. But the reason why people are like, why is the world so hard? Why is finances, money, business, relationships so difficult? Well, it's because we compete before we collaborate and connect with each other. That's it. You know, even you do it subconsciously. Guys go into certain rooms. How do I look? That guy's taller than me. He's shorter than me. He sounds louder than me.
It's true.
So we all do it, and women do it the same thing as well too. But I think, like, when you come together, if you haven't done that work on yourself, and if you aren't ready and prepared to take accountability, I see it like ahead of time now. So I can almost look at certain people and be like, that's just not going to work. You know what I mean? Because it's an experiment. It's an experience thing, isn't it?
And this is why it's interesting when you say like that. I think a lot of it has to do with environment in terms of the competitiveness. But one thing I always said to my partner, like, when I first met her, I was like, you always do that. And she's like, what do you mean? And now, say 8 years down the line, I'm like, maybe I should do that more. Where she would always throw someone a compliment when she was introduced to them. Like, she was like, she'd say to like a girl, like, oh my god, like, your skin's beautiful. I love your outfit. Like, but we always tend to go to the negative, and that's the competitiveness in us. Like, he's this, he's that, and then you try and find like something to. Whereas if you actually take accountability for the fact that you're having these negative thoughts when everything should be positive, because you only want to exude like positive unless they've done something negative, then that should be the way in which you that should be your default setting. But that comes down to accountability. I can't even explain how important accountability is,
brother. I mean, you know what, I want to add in something as well. This takes me back to something where I remember having a conversation with one of my friends years ago. This is about 15, 16 times, but it was a very pivotal conversation. You know, there's ones where it links and you remember it. So we was talking about friendship, and what I've realised, and I'm not sure you may be able to speak on this a bit as well, because we come from the working class environment, everything is dog eat dog world. It's just how it works. Like, we have to fight tooth and nail for opportunities. That's how it works. So what I realised very early on is that my mannerisms, my characteristics, were only fitting for a certain type of people. I could only really spend my time with a certain amount of people for so long. And it's because I realised the base level trait for a lot of people is to neg and to, like, the fail-safe, the baseline is typically, how can I make fun of this person? How can I make a joke? How can I make some humour or some banter? But what we don't realise is that there's a lot of insidious, like hatred and jealousy and greed built in there. You know, so what I see it in friendship circles, and hence the reason why now I have like 2 close friends, and that's it. And it's basically, I remember being out on a night out one time with a big group of friends, and you know, guys go out, night out, everyone's a guest list, everyone's having a good time, blah 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 blah. And one of the guys on a night out said, jokingly, because he had a few drinks, he said, alright boys, every man for themselves tonight, like, a couple of guys was chuckling, and in the back of my mind I was just like, like an alarm just went off, and I was just like, whoa, because I saw the truth in it. I saw how it was played off as a joke, but I also realised
it was said for a reason.
It was said for a reason. And I was realising that, so we're all here as so-called friends on a night out, but the competitive edge in humans is so powerful that it will cause you and your own friendship circle to like compete against each other without even realising you're doing it. So like, even though that was thrown jokingly out and it just resided back into jokes and we all just sort of banter, in the back of my mind that stuck with me, because it made me realise that, well, hold on, it made me question friendship, because my whole concept of friendship was that denigrate your friends. You don't try to make your friends feel less than.
Nope.
You try to build and empower your friends up. Like
100%.
I've always looked at it like, yo, that's my guy. Like when you have the roadman chat, it's just like I'm trying to be like you.
Yeah.
Like that's how I see friendship. I don't see it as like I see you. Like we have to go straight to taking a piss out of each other. You know, and if I find, and for me, if I'm with people who constantly, that's their fail-safe, they don't feel comfortable unless they take the piss out. You know, when people say, "Oh my, that's just how he is."
Yeah, no,
it's not just how he is. It's that's not how people.
There's a reason.
There's a reason why you've turned from being positive, forward-thinking, motivational around people you spend time with, as opposed to I'm just gonna use this like background of making fun out of it.
No, that's an interesting point because if you was in a room full of highly successful people, they wouldn't even have that kind of banter.
Yeah.
Or conversation.
It'd be weird. It'd be strange.
It would be strange. Like if you started running jokes on everyone in there, they would. You ain't going to be in that room ever again.
Ever again.
But that's what it comes down.
And you won't even know. You won't even get invited back to certain events.
Yeah.
You know.
That's why the accountability is so important because there's so many opportunities to grow and implement accountability on a day-to-day basis. Numerous times. Like I always like to keep it like real. It's like my missus earlier on, she went on me saying, had like a proper meltdown because she just tidied my daughter's room and then she went and closed her door and basically started playing dress up and everything's everywhere. So then she's come out and she's like fuming, she's like screaming down the place and she's like, I'm going to treat the house how you lot treat the house, even though we don't, but in that moment it felt like that. So then she's picked up all the washing that she's folded up 2 days ago, chucked it everywhere, literally everywhere, in the living room, chuck it, knocked over all the cushions, threw them on the floor there, and I sat there and then she's like obviously venting for emotion. I was like, this is where you need to take accountability because you're going to have to clean it up. I didn't make that mess. You couldn't control your anger, so now you're going to have to take accountability for your actions and actually reflect on how you can handle that better next time. Because although Aiko's wrong for making a mess, you have to take accountability for how you look to her now. So in the end, like she sat down and she started tidying it up, not saying nothing, but then I have to take accountability for the fact that maybe I should have checked on her. And that's how deep it goes. That's how deep it has to go.
There's layers,
I was watching football. I should have probably, naturally as a parent, I think you should every 2 minutes, if you don't hear from your kids, is everything okay, or go and look. So I have to take accountability. So therefore I didn't do anything wrong, but I didn't do anything right. So then the right thing that I can do is take accountability. And I was like, in my head I was like, how can you help this situation now? I was like, would you like help? She was like, no, I made the mess like you said, I should clear it up. I went again, would you like help? Because naturally a guy would walk off and be like, oh, you said that, like, I'm not going to help you because I already asked you. I went, would you like help? I looked her in the eyes, she was like, yes please.
And there you go. Squashed. And that's why it's important to be accountable, because had you not been accountable, it's done. Let's not even get into that point. Because you're just going to be like, well, you know what I mean? And then this is the problem that we have. So that's why I hark back to when I brought up the "who hurt you" statement. Because I think that is one of the most dangerous statements to say to a man who is choosing to share with you. Think about it. Men are logical to start with. We don't really want to be sitting there being emotional, talking about all this da-da-da-da-da. We want to find solutions. How can we fix it? We understand typically women are more emotional, so they're going to want to lean with that side. But when you sit down and you choose, and we're being coerced a lot of the time to have to talk about this stuff, then when you do share and then you say, oh, who hurt you, or you know, that's a negative way or a bad way to think about it, you're like, well, now you're inferring that my way of thinking is just inherently wrong. That's the problem. It's not like you're saying, hey, maybe I've recognised that you could look at it a different way. You're just saying, I don't respect that, I don't agree with it, you're wrong. That's basically what you're saying when you say who hurt you, because it's like I can't come to terms with why that would happen. Instead of saying, why do you think that way? Because I think this way, and I think if you do this, you could probably overcome it. No.
That's what I think Jordan Peterson touched on that on something where he says, like, they were like, how can you help someone that's going through it? And he was like, ask the right questions, I think is the thing he said. And that's like you said, like when a woman or anyone in general throws out the statement or the question, who hurt you, it's not the right question. And this way you have to take accountability for the questions you ask or the way in which you say things, because the right questions to ask are the ones that get them to open up naturally, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know the specific question you asked, but it might be like you said, why do you feel that way? Or how are you today?
Yes, it's
asking the right questions.
How are you doing?
Without making them second guess themselves.
Yeah.
So you create the platform for them to almost you create the canvas for them to paint on.
Yeah.
Instead of like being like kind of condemning them within the question, or because when you say who hurt you, it's assuming that someone has hurt them.
That's it. Yeah, you're doing it like
you're trying to make me a victim. I might not be a victim. I might not just know how to express my emotions. Full stop. I might not have been through anything bad, but I just want to express myself in a better manner.
Yeah.
So like it's asking the right questions, like in the right format, and this is why I now try and, before I say anything, take 2 seconds to think, like, because we're so quick to be like, it's like when someone says, "How are you?" Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
But are you actually really good?
Yeah.
Like where naturally you want to say, "I'm all right. This morning was cool, but then I had a bit of a rough time in the afternoon. But other than that, I'm good."
Yeah. Or you might even be going through something like, "Oh man, like, you know, great example. I know one of my guys I spoke to the other day. His car got broken into the other day. What? Back window got smashed." It's just like, I'm sitting there vexed. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to be like, but then you understand this is life. Yeah. These are these things, and like, if you don't come to terms with them, you don't find ways to move on. And then I think tone's important too. When it comes to accountability, I think you can take accountability, but like, you know, you have people take accountability in a flippant way. Yeah. But they're kind of like, "Oh yeah, well, I guess it's all just my fault, mate."
Yeah. Bro, like, it's funny because I'm not like that, but the one thing, the next thing I think, the next part of my journey is my tone.
Okay. Yeah.
Because sometimes
that's hard for men as well.
Yeah. Men sometimes I get so like
sometimes with it.
Like sometimes my partner or people will say to me, "It feels like you're talking at me."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
But it's because I'm so passionate. I'm trying to like get the point across. Yeah. Whereas I probably would get the point across better if I could speak like I'm speaking now. But it's like I'm so passionate because I might be like, "Look, you have to raise get up and go to the gym," and they feel like, "All right." No, I'm just like, I care about you.
They'll have 4 or 5 times. You'll probably be like, "I should probably work out."
Yeah.
And I'm like, work out. And then here you come, just like, and you try and give a little bit.
When someone's like, "I can't shift weight." Like, Josh, help me shift weight. And I'm like, "Do you go to the gym?" No, because I don't have enough time. That's an excuse. You're not taking accountability. If you wake up 20 minutes earlier and do 101 star jumps, you've done something. Oh, but and then my head goes. I'm like, I just have to like now learn to accept, because like I could do it for, if I'm not one-to-one with someone, and because I care about people, I tend to like talk at them. Okay. But if it's something else, like for example, like you said with your friend's car, if my car got smashed into, I'll be like, "Oh, it's an inconvenience, but stuff happens." Like, me being angry ain't gonna change what's happened.
Facts.
So I just keep it moving. But then when it comes to people, because if someone asks me to invest in them, and then they don't reciprocate the energy that I'm putting,
it's just frustrating, and that's where the patience is. It's hard to find because
like my patience.
It's really hard because it comes down to choice. It comes down to willingness. You shouldn't just be out here just being patient for everyone. No. That's real talk. You got to be selective. I think in who you do that with, but I think with accountability, it's not about being selective. It's about the opposite. It's about having it be unconscious. So that you just find ways to, you know, take the responsibility of saying, I don't have to overthink why this didn't quite work out. If you trace back a few steps, most people will know the answers. It's just they don't like the answer.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if I'm wording this right, but it's funny because when we talk about accountability, we always attach it to a negative something. Like, I had an argument, I have to take accountability. I cooked the kids the wrong stuff. It always seems to be a bad thing, but accountability isn't always. Accountability isn't bad. Here it is. Accountability isn't bad. Accountability is pro-growth. So it's in aid of growing. Like you said, if some people just take accountability to be like, "Oh yeah, it's always me, isn't it? I'm always the one to blame." Yep, come on, just keep it coming, and they just take it. But no, accountability
has to be
at the apex of accountability has to be growth or your godlike self. Like, the reason I'm taking accountability is because I should be playing this level, or I should have this level of followers, or I should be making this much from my YouTube channel. So I have to take accountability for that and figure out the prerequisites to get to that. If I'm not there, then I need to change my method and take accountability for the method I'm using to get a different result. So it has to be pro-growth. Like, it has to
be growth at the end of it, as opposed to like this statement we just throw out, and it's just it doesn't really have an end point, because it's like you're just throwing it out to. And I think we have too many buzzwords now, man.
Everything's a buzzword.
Everything's a buzzword now, isn't it? It's almost like, sounds good to say, but we don't have to follow it. Consistency. It's just like, be consistent. I hear 1,000 people talking about consistency, right? And most of them aren't consistent.
That's why I go back to the point I made before. It would be interesting to, instead of having, you have to have the conversation to be able to even ask the question, but actually start asking people questions, because everyone tends to go on these podcasts because they want to be someone.
Exactly.
It's that, for me, a podcast, I come on podcasts because I want to learn and I want to grow. So if someone was to say to me, have you ever cheated? I'll go, yes. And they're like, so you're a cheater? No, I've cheated. And then if you want to ask me, how does it make you feel? Back then, when I was 24, 23, 22, whatever it was, I would have said, I don't care, I don't owe them nothing. But my highest self would be like, I need to take accountability. What I did was completely wrong. I was actually a bad person then. That's me taking accountability. And I only want to take accountability because I'm trying to tell you that I'm not that person now. It's not once a cheater, always a cheater, because then every man probably in history is a cheater then. No, I'm telling you this because I'm making myself vulnerable in the right manner by being honest. So then I can then grow and tell you and help you grow based on my experience, and be like, there's not really nothing to it. It's not fun. It haunts them girls for life. They dislike you. They then spread the message that you're that person forevermore. So you have to take accountability for these things.
No, it's true. It's almost like we can easily sit here and say this is what men want to do, but there is that other thing of, one, are you honest about it? Because that's really a lot of the time. It's are you willing to be honest? In my particular case, because I kind of side a little bit closer to your ways of thinking. Like when you're with a partner or with someone that is more exclusive, yes, you may have the option to, and that may make you a bit more attractive. But I think if you're just willy-nilly going out there and doing it actively, you can't be mad if you're going to deal with a toxic, crazy woman at home. So that's just natural. But 100%. I think what we're dealing with now is that this weird divide where men are hearing messages that suit them, but they don't actually suit their lifestyle. So it's like, that is so true. That point there, that in its own should be a clip, because people are taking, like you said, statements, buzzwords, and making it suit their narrative, but it's not part of their play. Exactly. It's not you.
It's not who you are. So like, you can't then use it and say, men do this, men do that, high value men do this. If it's not you, you might have certain options, but are those options, if you get caught doing X, Y, and Z and trying to act like or impersonate a high value man, is it going to be to your benefit, or are you going to be struggling to see a kid, spending money for CSA that you don't have, X, Y, and Z, all of these things? Then you have to take accountability for your actions.
That's true. Very true. I mean, on top of that as well, taking the accountability for the options is so important. But I think, like, hopping back to that same point we were just bringing up, like, if you haven't really done the work, is everything's irrelevant, really. You know, you could sit there in a room and watch content that relates to you or the way you would like to be, but if we don't have a life, if we don't have like the actions behind it, if you don't, and even some of it built up, because I think the reason why I really side with RP and some of the content creators' ways of thinking is because I've done a lot of the work. I've done a lot of the sacrifice stuff that I know a lot of people aren't willing to do. They're not willing to go, years in a career path that don't make them no money. They're like, you ain't making no peas. Get out of there. Like, that's where the passion resides. It's just like, when it comes to relationships, I haven't been that guy to just happily be out and willingly cheat on girls, or even not be open front and honest at least about what I'm doing. So what I've received is that, oh yeah, you know, you're probably just like everyone else. Or even when you do tell them the truth, like that's not how you operate. You meet this weird divide where we know some men, they've been labelled too nice, they've been labelled too friendly, too agreeable. So they do this fake thing where, and I got caught in this myself. I got caught in that element where I was trying to be over the top, trying to prove that I am not more of a, let's say, respectable, agreeable character. And you do this fake thing for a period of time where you try to like just be just disagreeable, where you just disagree with people's points, you try to be more abrasive, you try to do all these different things. But if it's not in your nature, then you need to understand what it is you need to do to be that strong character, that confident character, without having to disrespect people along the way, or even yourself. You know, and I think too many people want to be, I need to be Andrew Tate, I need to be Kevin Samuels, I need to be one of these RP content creators.
But what you'll find, and this, even if you do bad things in life, like you said, as long as you're willing to do the work, sometimes your bad behaviour or your wrongdoing, you have to go a step further than saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. You have to take accountability and find out the reason why you do it, which still means accountability.
Very true.
Do you know what I mean?
Like you might have figured out.
If you just go around and say, if you're a man, woman, whatever, I'm just really horny, love sex, by all means, do your thing. But if you don't enjoy doing it and you don't like the outcome, whether it's career-wise, relationship-wise, and you don't like the outcome if it goes wrong, then you actually have to do the work and figure out, why do I do this? How can I go back? And that's where it comes down to doing your inner child work and going back and being like, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. Like, so I can say, and to be fair, it took a crazy plant medicine ceremony that I went, like a retreat that I went on, for someone to say this to me, and I was like, at first I wasn't accepting of it because I didn't want to take accountability, and they were like, we've been like kind of tapping into you, like, or like kind of researching like your star sign, who you are as a person. They're like, you got daddy issues, and I was like, I don't think I do, because I love my life. I think I've been more successful without him in it than I would have with him in it. They were like, not so much that you're like, oh, daddy come home. It's more so you can't do second best because you felt like you were second best because he didn't choose you. And I was like, oh, that's a deeper way to look at it. And he was like, whether you're arguing with your missus, whether you're playing with your kids, playing with he said there's certain traits that men have, but you can't do second best. You will never shut up. You always have to get the last word in, because you don't want to be second best again. And that's how you felt growing up. And it took me back to a scenario where I bumped into him in Slough High Street, funnily enough, and he knew who I was, and it's weird, I was with my half brother, but there were so many of us, like we wasn't like, we didn't speak like that, so there was like 20 of us, and he's like kind of come up to him and said like, oh, you're right, son, and gave him some money, and then kind of looked at me and then kept it moving, and that's an example of second best. So my retaliation is, okay, you're going to hear about me one way or another, so then that kind of kicks me on in my career, and
so
I take accountability for why I like arguing, or when I do argue, I will argue. It don't matter who you are. You can be the manager of the club, chairman of the club, owner of the club. I'm going to argue.
You know what? It really makes me think about like why the importance of two-parent households is so important. And I'm speaking from experience of not having one. That's how important it is. Like, you know, most young black people, wherever you are in the world, you'd be lucky if you had both your parents at home for 20 years of your life. And I think that is a starting point as to why we make the decisions we do, why we're less or more likely to take accountability for our actions, because some of it is conditioning, some of it is environment, but then you do reach that point where your choices are now the factor, and some of us just have a better start than others, and I think that's what it is. I've been able to notice growing up with a strong presence of my dad in my life, but not having much of the other side. It's unique.